Good evening. Welcome to the Canby City Council regular meeting for May 2nd, 2018. If you please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you so much for this group of leaders here on the dais, those that are out in the audience and at home watching on TV. We thank you so much for this great community and all the blessings that you bestow upon us. Keep us safe, give us wisdom and guidance as we hear tonight's proceedings. We ask these things in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have a plethora of proclamations this evening, and so I've kindly, well, we'll say kindly, asked my council to help out this evening. So the first proclamation is Water Safety Month proclamation.
All right.
Council President Dale.
Whereas the citizens of Canby recognize that swimming and aquatic-related activities contribute to good physical and mental health and enhance the quality of life for all people, and whereas the citizens of Canby understand the essential role that water safety education plays in preventing drownings and recreational water-related injuries, and have demonstrated that understanding by approving funding to continue operation of the Canby Swim Center, and whereas the City of Canby is aware of the contributions made by the recreational water industry, as represented by the many organizations, including the Canby Swim Center, involved in the National Water Safety Month Coalition that have developed safe swimming facilities, swim lessons, and other aquatic programs, home pools and spas, and related activities. And whereas these facilities, along with the many natural rivers and ponds in the Canby area, are providing healthy places to recreate, learn and grow, build self-esteem, confidence, and a sense of self-worth, which contributes to the quality of life in our community. And whereas the citizens of Canby recognize the ongoing efforts and commitment of the Canby Swim Center to educate the public, and especially children, regarding water safety issues so that they may safely enjoy the benefits of all water-related activities. And whereas the citizens of Canby understand the vital importance of communicating water safety rules and programs to families and individuals of all ages, whether owners of private pools, users of public swimming facilities, or visitors to area rivers and swimming holes, now therefore the Mayor, Brian Hodson, by virtue of the authority vested in him as Mayor of the City of Canby, does hereby proclaim the month of May as Water Safety Month in the City of Canby, and does urge all those in the Canby area to support and promote this observance, given unto his hand this 2nd day of May 2018 in the City of Canby, Oregon.
Thank you, sir. I believe Eric is here for this.
Yeah, I'd just like to take this time to thank you for having Water Safety Month, and just remind people that now's a great time to sign up for summer swimming lessons, that we have a variety of times. We have mornings and evenings available. And we're currently finishing up our 2nd grade swimming lessons. We have this week and then 3 more weeks of school lessons going on. And that on May 12th, we have the annual Gator Grinder Triathlon, and you're all invited to come out and see how that works. And it's a pretty fun event for all ages. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Eric.
The next proclamation is the Walk and Bike Challenge. Mr. Parker.
Whereas for more than a century, the bicycle's been a utilitarian, economical, environmentally sound, and effective means of personal transportation, recreation, and fitness. And whereas the City of Canby encourages the use of bicycles and walking as a means of transportation, and whereas the City of Canby recognizes the bicycle as a legitimate roadway vehicle, and therefore is entitled to legal and responsible use of all public roadways and facilities in Oregon except highways constructed to interstate standards, and whereas the City of Canby encourages the increased use of the bicycle and walking, benefiting all citizens of Canby, by improving air quality, reducing traffic congestion and noise, decreasing the use of and dependence upon finite energy sources, and fostering physical fitness. Whereas the City of Canby's Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee, in conjunction with the mayor, encourage all citizens to ride their bicycles or walk to work, to the store, to the park, to school, and around their neighborhoods with friends, family, and neighbors to promote the personal and societal benefits achieved from bicycling and walking. Therefore, Brian Hodson, as mayor, by virtue and authority vested in him as mayor of the City of Canby, does hereby proclaim the month of May as Walk and Bike Challenge Month in the City of Canby, and do urge all of those in the Canby area to support and promote this observance. Given under his hand on the second day of May 2018, the City of Canby, Oregon, Brian Hodson, Mayor. And as liaison to the Bicycle Committee, I will pass this along to them.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. We'll move into the next one, which is Poppy Days in Canby.
Yes, I get to do this one. Okay, proclamation, Poppy Days in Canby. Whereas the American Legion Auxiliary adopted the poppy as its memorial flower, which pays tribute to the war dead and serves as source of aid to surviving veterans and their families. And whereas the contributions provided by the American Legion Auxiliary are put to good use in support of the children and youth of the Canby community and toward the rehabilitation and care of veterans. And whereas the work of the American Legion Auxiliary through the annual sale of poppies is a proper and fitting tribute to the acts of patriotism and courage made by our nation's veterans in a time of national need. Now, therefore, Brian Hodson, by virtue of the authority vested in him as mayor of the City of Canby, hereby proclaims the month of May 2018 as Poppy Month, and do further proclaim May 20 through May 26, 2018 as Poppy Days in the City of Canby, and urge all citizens of the City of Canby to proudly remember the sacrifices made by the members of our armed forces by contributing to the American Legion Auxiliary during the month of May 2018 in support of their service to our country's veterans. Given unto his hand this second day of May 2018, Brian Hodson, Mayor.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you very much for honoring our veterans every year. Last year we had the funeral of a World War II veteran in Canby who had been a prisoner of war, shot down on a mission that he was flying. And at that time I found out that we had 4 prisoners of war in Canby. And can you imagine in 1945 how few veterans, because of the population there were, and to have 4 is just an amazing number to me. But I'd like to thank you for caring. For over 99 years, the American Legion has sponsored Poppy Days. And in 1919, the World War I veterans that came home remembered the battlefields of Europe, and they remembered the poppies that grew there wildly after the fields had been bombed and riddled with strife from the war. So they made the poppy their annual flower. And in 1921, the auxiliary took on the position of passing out poppies. And the poppies that you're wearing or received are all handmade here in Oregon. And part of their funding that goes to these veterans is that they get a small pittance for making the poppies. But the American veterans brought that image home, planted it in our minds, and next year it'll be 100 years since they chose that flower as their annual flower. And in 2021, it will be 100 years that the auxiliary has passed out veteran-made poppies for donations for their rehabilitation. So on behalf of America's veterans, that I don't take this lightly, thank you for caring.
Thank you. Our next proclamation is the National Association of Letter Carriers Food Drive Day.
All right, thanks. Whereas the National Association of Letter Carriers, in conjunction with the National Rural Letter Carriers Association, U.S. Postal Service, UFCW, United Way, AFL-CIO, Valpak, local food pantries, and Valasis are coordinating a non-perishable food drive, and whereas the Canby Center Food Pantry is in need of food at all times, and whereas local food bank shelves are continually in need of replenishment due to the ongoing dramatic increase in the need for food, and whereas last year 8,383 pounds of non-perishable food was collected at the Canby Food Bank, and whereas during the last 6 months, the total number of food orders at the Canby Food Bank was 5,723, and whereas the local letter carriers will collect non-perishable food items placed by mailboxes on Saturday, May 12th, 2018. Now, therefore, Brian Hodson, by the virtue of the authority vested in him as mayor of the city of Canby, does hereby proclaim Saturday, May 12th, 2018, as the 2018 National Association of Letter Carriers' National Food Drive Day, and urge all citizens of the city of Canby to participate in this worthwhile event by donating non-perishable food items to help feed those who are in need. Given unto his hand the 2nd day of May, 2018.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council members. On behalf of the 25th anniversary food drive of Canby, we are delighted to have Mr. Ray Keene, the Executive Director of the Canby Center, come on board in this year's food drive. And the past 24 years with Mr. John Dewar, our letter carrier who started it here in Canby, we partnered with St. Vincent de Paul Food Bank of St. Patrick's Church, and after 24 years, they were able to come into another type of partnership that helped them in their food bank, and they felt they didn't want to keep the annual food drive to themselves, so they said they'd like to pass this particular blessing to someone else. So that was last year, and I said, holy cow, who do we look for? So anyway, I thought, well, there's only 2 places, and so when I went to the Canby Center last year to make an appointment for Mr. Ray Keene, he said, I'm right here, come on in. And I told him the situation. He said, oh my goodness, they've been looking for an avenue like this to do something because it was so well organized. And so last year, all during that time, the Food Bank of St. Vincent de Paul were so kind and gracious. They had everything transitioned over. They showed Ray Keene and his crew how it was set up, all their volunteers, and the wildest thing is the Rotary Club has been so faithful to the Food Bank of St. Vincent de Paul. They said, oh my gosh, we'll go over and help the Canby Center because they have members that are part of the board at the Canby Center. So it was the most perfect fit. And so Mr. Ray Keene, to give him background of, so what do we do, an annual food drive? I got him down to the trenches and he was sweating like you couldn't believe. This morning at the Oregon Food Bank, where we did the whole state of Oregon for the letter carriers, we got the yellow bags that you'll be putting your food in, your mailboxes hanging off, and these real flimsy cards that will be accompanying your yellow food bags next week. So Ray can say, I've been through the whole state of Oregon doing this for the letter carriers. And so I give this time to Mr. Ray Keene.
Just want to say we're grateful for the help. There are about 2,000 people in the Canby area who are food insecure. And we get to see many of those at the Canby Center on a weekly basis. And it truly is wonderful when people step up to do the part that they can. There's not a shortage of food. We just have to figure out how to share it in the right way. Thank you.
Thanks, Irene. Our next proclamation is Public Works Week.
Whereas public works services provided on our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, And whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as parks, fleet, sewer, streets, stormwater, wastewater, and public buildings. And whereas the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depends on these facilities and services. And whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, are vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of the public works staff. And whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform, now therefore, Brian Hodson, by virtue of the authority vested in him as mayor of City of Canby, does hereby proclaim May 20th through 26th, 2018 as Public Works Week in the City of Canby, and calls upon all citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works, and to recognize the contributions which public works staff make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. Given unto his hand the 2nd day of May 2018 in the City of Canby, Oregon.
Thanks. Please have a seat and tell us all about it.
My name is Jennifer Klein. I'm the Public Works Director of Canby as of recent end of January this year. I just want to say thank you, Mayor and Council, for this proclamation. And I want to speak on behalf of Public Works as a whole and say thank you on their behalf as well. As you know, there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that not everybody sees every day that the Public Works crews participate and do to better the city. Some of the things happen underground. I think at times we forget that wastewater and storm and other things end up under the ground, and they're always working diligently to keep that system working and to provide clean water services as we discharge into the Willamette River. So some of the upcoming things that you may see, we have a paving project coming up, which is on the agenda tonight. We have a sewer project coming up, and the crews will be hanging up the baskets here in the next couple weeks. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer. And our last proclamation is the Historic Preservation Month. Mr. Parker.
Whereas historic preservation is an effective tool for economic development, tourism, promotion, management of growth, revitalization of neighborhoods, fostering of local pride, and maintaining overall community character while enhancing livability. And whereas the historic houses, buildings, and other sites of Canby help make our city unique and provide links with aspiration and attainment of the city's pioneers and their descendants, and whereas these fine examples of 19th and 20th century buildings contribute to an appreciation of our heritage, and whereas historic preservation is relevant for the communities across the nation, both urban and rural, and for Americans of all ages, all walks of life, and all ethnic backgrounds, and where it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and contributions made by dedicated individuals in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that has helped shape us as a people. Whereas This Place Matters is the theme for the National Historic Preservation Month. Now, therefore, Brian Hodson, as mayor and with the authority vested in him as mayor of the City of Canby, does hereby proclaim the month of May as Historic Preservation Month in the City of Canby, and does urge all of those in the Canby area to support and promote this observation, given unto his hand on the 2nd day of May 2018 in the City of Canby, Oregon. Brian Hodson, Mayor.
Yeah, in the picture.
Good. So I'm passing around the flyer. Once again, we are doing, and there's some in the back table for those of you that are interested. Once again, as part of Historic Preservation Month, we are doing a cemetery event. We are cleaning markers this year at Zion Memorial. in the historic section. And one of the really neat things is we're doing it in May this year, which means that those markers will be clean for the Memorial Day event, which is great because the historic section is really near the site where they do that event. So that's great. So you were all invited to come and help us. It's 10:30, May 10:30 in the morning, not at night, May 12th, and we will have coffee and donuts, and we will provide all the training, all the tools, everything you need to do the markers, get the markers clean without damaging them. So, see you there.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Thank you all for the help on the proclamations. I appreciate it. Move into communications.
I actually do have something to share. I mentioned this to you, Mr. Mayor, across email, but there is recently been brought to our attention the idea that our parking ordinance is not quite up to speed in terms of there is some, I guess, ambiguity in that the word park doesn't exactly show up in it as much as storage and abandonment. And so you can look for, and one of the reasons I'm announcing this is because we have a couple of people in our communities that are experiencing some parking turmoil with their neighbors. And so we wanted to look at the ordinance because we wanted to make sure that it's clean and it operates the way we want it to. So what we're going to do is add the word parking into it, which sounds obvious, but it needs to be cleaned up. It also doesn't reference the right ORS in terms of how we're supposed to ticket, even though we follow the ORS and it's incorporated into our other parts of our code, so it's fine that we've been operating under it, but we need to clean that up. And then finally, and people might be interested to know that currently you're not supposed to park anywhere for in excess of 24 hours under our old ordinance, which seems, I think, egregiously strict because you can't leave your car for a 3-day weekend without the permission of the chief of police. So we're going to be bringing you at the next meeting the opportunity to change that to maybe a 72-hour period so that seems a little bit nicer. But once we clean this up, we figure that this will be an opportunity for our code enforcement to go out and say, look, we do have this new ordinance, it's unambiguous and it's fair, and you need to be a good neighbor. And I would just remind everybody to please be a good neighbor as you're street parking.
Yes.
I'm just curious, in the spirit of being a good neighbor, is there anything that can be done about the rental car place that really encroaches on the neighborhood on Second? There's a lot of fodder on Facebook about it recently, and actually I know somebody who lives in that neighborhood, and apparently the rental cars are parked along the street in front of houses, and just curious.
If you don't mind sharing that offline, we will certainly engage in conversations between our code enforcement and that person, just because I think oftentimes people don't realize that parking enforcement could be strict, and whenever we have certain areas that seem to be problematic, when people bring them up, then the way we fairly go about it is that we enforce in the whole area. Mm-hmm. But if we have an area that seems to be a trouble area, then we go to that area and we enforce a little bit better. So if you don't mind offline sharing that address, I will make sure and pass it along.
No problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Joe, for taking that on. I appreciate it. I know that's been trying to smooth that out has not been the easiest piece, so thank you.
Never is. Parking is a very sensitive subject. And speaking of sensitive subjects, we did receive notice from the state of California state of Oregon. I go back to my roots. I apologize for that. The state of Oregon last week, within the last 10 days, that they have unilaterally implemented some changes in the licensing and certification required of building officials. It affects many and probably most jurisdictions in the state of Oregon. This was kind of came out of the blue. We had no advance notice of it or advance warning. As you know, we do have a contract with Clackamas County to provide building official services, which includes plan checks and building inspections during the course of construction. We are working with the county to understand what the implications are on their program that could potentially affect us. We have till June 30th to identify and correct any deficiencies that have been set forth by by the state, and we'll be continuing to work with both Clackamas County and the Oregon agency responsible for this letter over the next 6 weeks, seeking a solution to make sure that we do remain in compliance. Been assured by Clackamas County's building official that they are working tirelessly to identify and address these issues and get the solutions in place in a timely fashion so that our program and other programs for which Clackamas County is providing these services not be adversely affected. But you may likely hear something about this. I just want you to know we are aware of it and we're working to address it.
And this is mostly as to building inspection.
It's to the licensure required for the chief building official to hold that position, and it does involve inspection services, require certain specific types of certificates for a to be held by the chief building official to be in compliance with the new state regulations. I have read it over several times, but I couldn't tell you specifically what they are. I'll ultimately rely on Clackamas County and their expertise and their support staff to assist us getting through this process.
Do we know yet of a financial impact to us as a city in this matter?
Yeah, we're not expecting, there's one potential downside, and that relates to the nature of the contract that the city has with Clackamas County that could be at risk right now. Percentage of the building permit fee is retained in our community development department. That's something that could be at risk under these new regulations. As we sort all this out, we'll be able to tell. That was my first thought, was that it's probably not terribly likely that we'll be able to retain that share of the building permit application fee, but we won't really know until we get to the end of this process and can determine what additional duties and responsibilities the county will have to take on, what the contract relationship will need to look like between the contracting agency and the agency that is receiving the services. I will say that the biggest impact of these new regulations appears to be in those jurisdictions that are contracting with independent private third parties, companies that provide inspection and plan check services, as they are almost universally non-compliant. We don't find ourselves in that position because we do have this agreement with Clackamas County. So it's certainly an item that we're very concerned about, but we're working proactively to address.
All right. Keep us posted, obviously.
Well,
thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Actually, of Joe, the current parking ordinance then, you had said it was 3 days that were permitted for a car, but
No, currently it's 24 hours.
or 24, and you wanted to extend it to 3
I'm
days.
going to be asking when I bring it to you, and it's up to you guys as a body to vote on it or not.
Okay.
But what you're going to be hearing from me is the idea that it probably would be fair to allow people to park for a 3-day weekend in the street, say in front of their house. In order for us to impound it, ORS Chapter 819 makes us sticker it and then wait a certain 72 hours after stickering it to make sure that somebody has the opportunity to come get it, so that it really looks to coincide with what already impounding rules and such like that. So,
But more discussion to follow later.
correct.
Okay, great, thanks. Thank you.
All right, we'll move into citizen input and community announcements. This is the first opportunity for audience members to make community announcements or raise questions of the council on non-agenda items. If you do want to speak, please fill out a yellow card located on the back and make sure our city recorder receives it, and you can have your time. And tonight I have one. Mr. Lang, you are up, sir. Hello.
Thank you for allowing me a moment of your time. I know there's a lot to get done this evening. But I just wanted to show up here tonight and introduce myself. I'm the new Executive Director of the Canby Area Chamber of Commerce, and just wanted to reiterate the Chamber's willingness and excitement in working with this body for the prosperity and future development of Canby, and to express my own personal enthusiasm to be in this position, to work with you folks as kind of a native son. It's nice to be asked to assume this position of responsibility. Yeah, thank you.
Well,
Very
thanks.
good. Welcome. Welcome. Yeah.
Kyle, you're going to do a great job. All right, not having any other yellow cards, we're moving to mayor's business. Not too many more, just announcements than anything else. Tomorrow morning is the mayor's prayer breakfast at 6:30 at Cutsford Town Hall. First Friday is back this Friday on the 4th. I'm sure somebody will cover off on some of the details on that. Clackamas County Coordinating Committee meeting is tomorrow evening, so nothing to report new on that. Attended the Metro Mayor's meeting, and a lot of that conversation was looking at what position some of the Metro Mayors want to take in terms of the Metro Housing Bond that is going to be coming up on the November ballot. So position, and then how do we want to help with some of the maybe course corrections that Metro is currently taking with it. So, but we are not in Metro, but is something that will definitely have an impact, I think, as we look at Canby's planning and growth in the future. The City Council had a special work session with the Library Board. We had a discussion on district funding and the district boundaries and what might be done about that and what help the Library Board might need from us. And then also had conversation about the Gladstone Oak Grove dual library project and where that stands and where that is headed. Canby Independence Day celebration fireworks show is, believe it or not, right around the corner. So there will be canisters around town for donations. Chief, did you bring one by chance tonight? Nope. Okay. They look like gigantic firecrackers. So they're all over town. So feel free to drop in loose change, unmarked bills, hundreds and 50s work. The goal is to raise $15,000 for the fireworks display. If you're so inclined, please donate. And I think that is it on my list. I will say, don't tune out and turn us off when we're done tonight. We have an urban renewal agency meeting following this one, so stay tuned in for that. We'll start with Councilor Parker.
We're excited.
Yes.
Well, I don't have much. I did want to point out that we are going to have our first Friday, and like to invite our Main Street manager, Jamie Stickle, to come up and talk about it. We're going to have some really good weather on Friday in the 70s, so looking forward to... Ordered up by Jamie, right? Ordered up by Jamie. So, Jamie, how many do we have participating? How many locations?
We actually have 10 different businesses participating at 7 locations. Gwynn's Coffee House has St. Joseph Winery and Movu Aesthetics coming. They are a downtown business on 3rd Avenue, and they're coming to play an electric ukulele as well as provide some information about the services that they have, and I think that they have some samples. And then we've got our 2 antique places downtown, Retro Revival, Retro Antiques. Dewar Chiropractic is going to be open from 5 until about 8, and he's going to offer chair massages. Located in Hartwell, Chiropractic is a new business, a naturopathic business, and I believe that it is Bountiful Health Family Medicine is what the name is. And she's going to be providing some information on the different essential oils that could be used to create a healthy lifestyle. Then we have Backstop with a food special, and Cuts Force with their wine and beer section, which will be open for people to go and have a little drink. So a lot of fun for a kickoff. Some new businesses, which I'm really excited about. I know that we're all excited for the Dahlia to be finished and those businesses to move in there so that we have some more downtown businesses to hopefully participate. But when the weather gets a little bit nicer, we'll have our vendors in Waite Park and have some some additional fun. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Hensley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In light of 8 ordinances, a public hearing, and a second meeting, I don't have anything. Can't wait. I'm looking forward to the rest of this month. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Council President Dale.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, along with yourself and some other councilors, we attended the retirement of Lisa Potter from the city yesterday. Very sorry to see her go, but well-deserved rest, and our thanks to Lisa for all her years of service to the city. On the Canby utility front, construction is progressing very well on their new headquarters. I was able to tour it today. Very nice facility, done well. A lot of thinking went into its design, so exciting to see. It's tailored very nicely for customer walk-in service, and be assured the drive-through payment box is still going to be there at the new facility. They're optimistic about the schedule. Tentatively, the next Canby Utility Board meeting for June is scheduled to be there. So that'll be a nice way to break in the new community room there. Canby Utility would like to brag that they've had no electrical outages this year, but they are quick to remind us that squirrel season is coming. So that pop you hear, unfortunately, is a sad rodent. And Canby Utility is now at 80% of all electrical services being underground, and that percentage will increase, but we're kind of playing with the statistics there because it's as new developments come in, they're entirely underground. So it makes that look good. An interesting thing that the community might like to know is that in case of a serious disaster like an earthquake or the Molalla River, from where all of our drinking water comes, was to be unusable for a short period of time, Canby Utility does have a contingency plan. If you frequent the logging road trail down by Baker Prairie School, you'll have seen some construction there and what looks like a sea-land container parked there next to the trail. That actually contains a generator and an emergency water pump. And if there's a disaster, we can pump out of Baker Prairie's irrigation well. The water is potable. It doesn't necessarily taste as good as what you're used to, but it is safe to drink. And they would be able to charge up the nearby fire hydrants so that we could get water to people. It's not strong enough nor enough volume to pressurize the mains in town, but you could come with containers and get water in an emergency. Baker Prairie School is also an emergency shelter, and that generator has enough excess capacity to run power into the school to give lighting for, say, the gym and other shelter areas. So kind of a nice partnership between Canby Utility and Canby Utility. And if you are interested, go ahead and check their website. They have some openings in the water department. I believe there's a grounds crew opening and a water quality manager opening there. So if you or you know somebody that could be interesting, check their website. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Hite.
Yes. So for the library, I wanted to thank John Smith, who's been a board member for the last 3 years. His term is complete, and so he won't be returning. But to fill his position, actually, is Carol Palmer. Is she gone now? Oh,
nope, she's there.
Hello. Welcome to the library board. So that's exciting. Yeah, and there's so many interesting things going on in May. I encourage you to pick up the flyer every month, of course, all the library's happenings. But there's a couple of new things I wanted to outline. There's a chess club that's meeting Thursdays. It's open for all ages from 11 to 1. And then Saturdays also 1 to 3. That's exciting. There's a family STEAM night. That stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math. And that's kind of a new thing with the library. That's pretty trendy in education now, and it's exciting. It's for whole families. I haven't actually taken my family yet, but there's some sort of project that you're supposed to work on with your family in the ways of creating or building something. So check that out if you're interested. And then this is super exciting to me. The American Red Cross is doing a disaster preparedness session at the library. I've been hoping that my neighborhood could get involved in something like that, but it's coming to the library on May 10th. I think. Oh, wait, sorry. It's right here in the pamphlet. May 8th, 6:30 p.m. So find out how to prepare yourself for natural and man-made disasters that can occur in our geographic area, which is a nice kind of conclusion to what you were talking about with water. But that's exciting. So participate in that if you're interested. Otherwise, Canby Area Transit, we're actually having a joint session next week with the Salem Chariots, with their transit board, to talk about coordination of services. So that'll be kind of exciting. I'll have more to report later on that. And then, you know, the Clackamas Cities Association dinner, a few of us went to that last week. It was in West Lynn, and it was pretty interesting. It was at the Youth Music Project in West Lynn. We heard some fabulous young musicians play, and John Williams, our former planner, actually gave a presentation about the West Lynn side of the falls and what's potentially could happen there. So it was fun. I was glad to have the opportunity to go. Yeah, and that's what I got.
Thank you. Councilor Spoon.
Why, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things. I'll keep it short. Bridging Culture's first lunch in the park is May 19th. That's always at Locust Street Park from 11:30 to 1:30. And if you've never attended one before, it's a free lunch in the park. And then it's just an opportunity to break bread with your neighbors. It really is a bridging of cultures. Oftentimes, some of our police or fire department show up and give an opportunity for the kids to kind of hang out, check out the vehicles, talk, and it's just a really lovely event. So it's been, you know, I can't believe it's already been a year, but May 19th, I'm sure they would love to see all of us there, but Locust Street Park. And then also this weekend is the Spring Garden Fair at the fairgrounds. So that's always a great event. And I think it's one of the pictures up on our thing tonight even too. So, and then finally, an extra special, today is Cutsforth's 90th anniversary, and they've been such an anchor in our community. I just wanted to acknowledge their role in our town, and it's really quite an accomplishment for a business in a small town to last that long and to stay in the same family. So I just stopped by on our way over here and gave Frank a high five. So congratulations to Cutsforth, and just a really, I'm sure, a hearty thank you from all of us for what they do for our community.
Good.
Great. Thank you all. We'll move into the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the minutes of the April 18th, 2018 City Council work session and regular meeting, the appointment of Carol Palmer to the Library Board effective July 1st, 2018 for a term to expire on June 30th, 2022, and the reappointment of Mike Hamelstrand to the Bike and Pedestrian Committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2021.
Second.
Motion has been made by Council President Dale and seconded by Councilor Hensley to approve the consent agenda, which include adopting the minutes of the April 18th, 2018 City Council work session and regular meeting, the appointment of Carol Palmer to the Library Board effective July 1st, 2018 for a term to expire on June 30th, 2022, and the reappointment of Mike Hemmelstrand to the Bike and Pedestrian Committee for a term to expire on June 30th, 2021. Any other comments or thoughts? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0 this evening. Next on our agenda is a public hearing for our transient room tax. We will read the format and we will get into it. The matter presently before the hearing body requires a public hearing. All interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. If you wish to testify on this matter, please fill out a yellow public testimony card and give it to the city recorder. At the appropriate time, please step forward to the microphone, state your name and interest in the matter. Those people that are interested in testifying as either proponents or opponents, please indicate your desire to speak by raising your hands at this time. For longer presentations, proponents and opponents may buy time from one another. In so doing, those either in favor or opposed may allocate their time to a spokesperson who will represent the entire group. All questions must be directed through the mayor. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access. All written testimony received both for and against shall be summarized by staff and presented briefly to the hearing body during the staff report. The public hearing will be conducted as follows. We'll have the staff report. Questions, if any, by the hearing body or staff. I will open the public hearing for testimony. We'll hear from proponents, those for the transient room tax for not more than 3 minutes each. Opponents, those against, not more than 3 minutes. I will then close the public hearing. questions, if any, by the hearing body, discussion by the hearing body, and then a decision shall be made by the hearing body at the close of the hearing, or the matter will be continued to a date certain in the future. This will be the only notice of that date you will receive. Does anyone have any questions about the procedure of the hearing? All right. We'll move into the staff report. Good evening, Renata.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Renata Mengelberg, the Economic Development Director for the city, and with me today we have Grant Schillinger. He's the Community Market Research Coordinator, a rare participant with the city.
Can you speak a little bit more into the microphone?
Okay, do you want me to say that again?
No, I think we got that, but just going forward so that they can hear us here in the auditorium and at home. Thanks, Renata.
All right. So I'm here today to tell you about a proposal to invest in tourism and really taking it to the next level. We'd like to present an idea about a transient room tax and give you a lot of background and information about it. First, what is a transient room? The official definition is a room in a transient lodging facility. It's a type of facility that can be partial or totally intended for lodging for occupancy for less than 30 days. Anything longer would be an apartment or a house or something to rent. Could be a hotel or motel or an inn. Could be a bed and breakfast. It could be a private room such as an Airbnb, a home away or a casa, a room or the entire facility. Could be a place to pitch a tent like an RV or a campsite or a number of other places. For Canby, what that means is we have a 35-room hotel, the Motel 6. We have RV sites at the Clackamas County Event Center. During the height of the fair season, they can pack in 145 RVs in that area, potentially. And then, as of today, there are 2 Airbnb facilities within the city limits. So why should we invest in tourism? It's part of our vision. In 2013, our citizens told us they wanted to enhance and coordinate our tourism efforts as part of their arts and culture aspiration to increase, coordinate, and promote arts and events that can build community cohesiveness and attract tourism to Canby. So tourism is an economic development strategy as well. It brings people to our community with money that spend it in our restaurants, at our events, and at our visitor attractions, and in our hotels. So it's bringing new money into town, supporting our businesses. We also have a number of tourism attractions and events already to build on. We have a lot to draw tourists to Canby, but that can be enhanced and taken to a higher level. A stable source of revenue and a dedicated effort by staff invested in tourism will really help expand Canby as a tourism destination and gain momentum over time. So we have been working on tourism over the past year or two. Many of you have seen our Newcomers and Visitors Guide. Okay, I'll move it closer to me. Is that better? So we've developed the Newcomers and Visitors Guide now for 4 years, and it talks about the events that are coming up in the year and all of our restaurants and visitor attractions. Just this winter, we launched a new tourism-dedicated website called Visit Canby. And coming to you within a month or less will be wayfinding signs that will guide our visitors around town and take them to our attractions. And also, this winter, we conducted a hotel study that found that, yes, there is additional demand for another hotel, potentially an 80-room facility, mid to upper scale hotel. So we have a strong foundation and room to grow. So with that, I'll turn it over to Grant to talk about transient room overview.
Absolutely. So just to sort of give an overview and some context regionally in the state of Oregon, there are 241 cities, and 86 of those are using transient room taxes to fund tourism projects and to advance their economies. 90% of those cities are using taxes that are 6% or higher, and there are only 3 cities with a 3% tax rate. So in Clackamas County, we've got tax rates ranging from 3% to 6%, and we're going to talk about that on the next slide, as well as some of the revenues that they're producing. So transient room taxes are very restricted in use. 70% of the funds have to be dedicated strictly to tourism-related projects, like the creation of tourism assets like recreation, agritourism, or heritage, and as well as promotion. So 30% of the funds are restricted to just general use. And then beyond that, transient taxes are collected at the state, the county, and the city level. The state itself has a 1.8% tax rate, and that goes towards funding organizations like Travel Oregon or regional marketing associations that are like the Mount Hood territory. In Clackamas County, there's a 6% tax that goes towards more grants and other advertising specifically for cities in Clackamas County. And it additionally provides funding for the Clackamas County Fairgrounds here in town. So moving on here, you can sort of see the Portland Metro on the left there and Clackamas County on the right, a lot of their proposed tax rates and as well the revenue that they're earning. You can see Portland itself is a huge tourism attraction, and that sort of slips down into Wilsonville due to their position on I-5 and their proximity to Portland. Oregon City, you can see with a 6% tax rate, they've just increased that from 5% last year. They originally implemented a transient room tax at 3%, and it's increased since then. They are currently earning $180,000, but they have multiple hotels in the works that are going to increase that revenue greatly. So, moving on to sort of an overview of the transient demographics in the area. Hotels and motels make up 76% of the total market, and in recent years we've seen the growth of vacation homes or Airbnbs and online short-term rental programs, and that's provided a lot of different flexibility to the market and a lot of new opportunities, but it's also created some new challenges that we'll talk about later. Here in Canby, the hotel study again has shown there's a lot of business and event-driven travel, and there's a market for business class hotels with more amenities. And currently that market is leaking to Wilsonville, Oregon City, and as far as Bridgeport Village. So diving a little further into demand in Canby, we have talked about the Clackamas County Event Center, and it brings in hundreds of thousands of people every year, as well as the business and the industrial park, which is constantly bringing in people year-round and providing a lot of sustainable demand. Tourism-related stays, we see that a lot more in the summer months, and things like Swan Island or our heritage trails that we've been developing. And these last three are all very related and very important parts of the tourism demand. When you have things like school stays for competitions or for tournaments, that's when you're going to bring in kids, you're going to bring in their families and grandparents to support them as well. So that's a large market that's very important. And additionally, things like family events, weddings, or reunions, that's going to bring in people for long weekends and provide a pretty significant part of the demand. So finally here, we're going to talk about some logistics of the taxes. These are entirely on the people who are staying in the rooms. This is not going to come out of revenues for hotel operators. It's not going to hurt their bottom line at all. These taxes are at the time of checkout, and so it's not going to be shown when you're comparing lodging websites. If you're looking to stay at a hotel, the transient lodging tax is not going to be part of your decision-making process. You're not going to stay in a city or a different city based on their levels of taxing. So we've seen also that lodging providers are allowed to keep 5% of the tax that they collect just to cover the cost of administration, and they already have the means of collecting the tax in place since they are already collecting for the county and for the state. So adding a city tax is not going to be any problem. And just to sort of go over some of the exemptions, anyone who's staying in a room for 30 consecutive days out of the year is not considered a transient, and at that point it's more of a tenant. And anything charging less than $15 a day, at that point it's just not worth collecting the tax, and it's more of a hassle for the operator. Any stays in a hospital, healthcare facility, or long-term care facility, and nonprofits or church-related camps. We're now going to talk about some of our expected revenues that we can see and how we can invest those.
Grant did a little analysis and research and created these numbers for us. So today, as I said, we have a Motel 6. Their room rate is $76. And so we calculated during the low season and the high season and at different tax rates for you. So if you average it out, at a 3% tax rate at low demand, it would generate about $9,000 a year. And if it were really at full occupancy and at the 6% tax rate, it would generate over $36,000. Now, the Motel 6 is investing significantly in upgrading their hotel rooms. A lot of that will be completed this summer, so we're hoping that that translates into higher occupancy for them. So now looking a few years down the road and a successful recruitment of a hotel to Canby, based on the recommendation of the lodging study, if we were to add a 80-room mid to upper scale hotel, combined with our existing hotel, it would generate in the neighborhood of $40,000 to $158,000. You can do quite a bit of tourism promotion and development with a revenue stream like that. So how could we invest in tourism? What are some ideas that make sense? Well, as Grant has explained, 70% needs to be dedicated towards tourism promotion and development. So we would enhance our tourism website, expand that reach, linking it to social media outreach efforts. We would create more brochures, build on the heritage trails that are in place already, build on the signage projects, absolutely do advertising and promotion, getting the word out, not just in the region, but nationally and internationally. There's lots of opportunities to partner with the county and with the state on cooperative marketing that really expands the reach and the awareness of Canby. Also, we have a lot of opportunities to develop our attractions and to add new events and new things that will bring visitors to our community. So on the 30% that's unrestricted, we're recommending to you that we also invest that in tourism. There are certain things that the 70% can't be used for. We're hoping that this additional 30% could round that out. And that could be coordinating and expanding on existing events. It could be offsetting some of the infrastructure costs around that, a sound system, barricades, tables, tents, that kind of thing. Also, it does cost the city in terms of time and staff to make sure these events are safe and well run. Our public works crew does a great job in helping to set up and take down after the events, and our police team make sure that it's a safe event for everybody. So some of these revenues could help offset those additional costs to the city. Also, you can invest some of this money in infrastructure that's related to the event, perhaps more public restrooms, those kinds of things could be a logical investment. Also, that you could choose to invest some of the funds in outside of tourism if you wish. It's unrestricted. So with that, I'll turn it over to Grant.
All right, so just to sort of go over some of the challenges that have been coming up with online short-term rental platforms. With the rise in popularity, we've sort of seen opportunities for people to stay in different experiences than they've had with just traditional hotels and motels. It's given them more of a homely feel, and it's also given people a chance to open up their home to earn additional revenues. But due to the nature of these organizations, it's difficult to enforce taxes on them that are local, so things like their entities are sort of detached. So that's why Clackamas County and the City of Portland both have lawsuits in place and legislation on the way that's going to sort of regulate and expand the definition of transient lodging intermediaries and hold them more responsible for paying the tax. We've seen House Bill 4120 was just recently signed a couple months ago, and it's set to go in place July 1st. And we've seen this really be successful. It's started to already have them comply. Some people are across the state already charging transient room taxes. So it's definitely on the way, and they are educating their individual hosts for how to comply with any regulations in the city and to make sure that they're paying the taxes necessary. So coming up next, we have some next steps and our recommendations.
Great. So this hearing is the first step in the process. to hear public input and give you a chance to deliberate about this proposal. The next step might be to make sure that our transient lodging tax, should we choose to proceed, include short-term rental platforms, and in the ordinance that you have in your packet, our able attorney has made sure that that has happened. We could begin to collect the tax July 1st. That gives us enough time to reach out to our lodging providers and get them familiar with our process. We can continue to build on our tourism development and promotion efforts and make sure that our visitors have a friendly, can-be welcome, that it's a good experience for them, that they want to tell their friends and family about it and bring more people here. We want it to be a great experience for our tourists. And then I'll continue to work to recruit lodging providers to Canby. So with that, our staff recommendation respectfully is that you consider a 6% tax rate. We feel that would raise sufficient funds to really make an impact immediately. That could generate between $19,000 to $36,000 a year. Of course, the first checks wouldn't arrive until September, so this year would be kind of a starting year. We also recommend that you devote all of the funds toward tourism, 70% as required by statute toward promotion and development, and 30% for other aspects of tourism. And we feel that the economic development team is the right group to implement the program for the city. We're already doing it. We have the contacts, we know the resources, and can really hit the ground running quickly. So I did want to draw your attention to a letter that was submitted by Clackamas County. Jim Austin unfortunately couldn't be here at the last minute, but he did provide his input for that. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Renata and Grant?
I do have a quick one.
Yes, sir.
Does the transient room tax apply to the fairgrounds during Fair Week, or is that part of Clackamas County's hands-off?
So I did sit down with Lori Bothwell to talk through this program and see how it might impact her. And one of the things she suggested we do, and we have incorporated into the draft ordinance, is to have the tax only impact RVs. They do have some tent camping, that's $10. It's primarily to give the 4-H kids a place to stay while they're with their animals. And, 6% on $10 is not really worth collecting. So the bulk of their lodging does happen around the fair, but they do have RV sites available at other times of the year. And my understanding is that they're looking to expand on that as well. And perhaps Councilor Parker might have some comments about that.
To answer your question, they collect transient.
To answer your question is that they pay the county transient room tax year-round, and they have no authority to have a blackout on this. So this tax would apply year-round, including during the fair week.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
And the 30%, the 70% is allocated to tourism, and the extra 30%, from which of those buckets, if you will, would we be paying for, say, 4th of July or big street dance? The 70%, or how do you envision that? I'm curious.
Tourism promotion would be, 70% would be towards tourism development and promotion. So tourism development might be something that you can touch, a physical thing, whereas, and promotion is advertising. The 30% could be around coordinating and developing new events, some of those soft things like Jamie's Time to do the Independence Day celebration. It's a lot of time and a lot of work. There may be other events with overtime that we may or may not want to take on. So that's why we're advocating for 100% in, so that you have maximum flexibility to build out.
But it's at our discretion to take that 30% and spend it elsewhere, or is it written in the ordinance right now? I'm curious.
You're only required to dedicate 70% of the room tax toward tourism.
And that is the recommendation, that the 70% be allocated and the 30% remain discretionary, with an expressed intent to spend it on tourism-related support activities. We want to make sure that we've always had difficulty in bringing our law enforcement, public works, and other ancillary services into our program areas because they have dedicated funding sources, or we can't afford the overtime, and that 30% would help to address that. But it would, based on the ordinance and based on my recommendation to you, it would remain discretionary, so we have some flexibility and discretion in how we apply it.
And the birthplace of that is actually the Oregon revised statute that allows cities to do this, allocates intentionally 70% to tourism and tourism-related facilities, and then allows cities to then have flexibility on that other 30%. So that's where that comes from. It isn't just our ordinance, it's actually from the state statute that allows you to have one of these as a locality. So that's why they're very strict on the 70%. The 30%, they know that, it's a way in which a city can be flexible and not have to just spend it on directly tourism or tourism-related facilities.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Councilor Spoon.
From the wise words of Tracy Hensley, Councilor Hensley, for the viewers at home and our audience, I just thought it might be helpful to know that we already had a workshop on this. So a lot of the nuanced piece and talking through it, we've gone through. But also, and this might be a question for Joe or Kim, but the 2 Airbnbs that we have in town, and I'm sure some have already come and gone too, and we pay attention to them. Do we require them to have business licenses? Are they integrated into the business community? Okay, good. Helpful to know. Thank you.
People should be encouraged when they live in a town to look up the ordinances. Very few people actually do. But yeah, the business license, people I think would be surprised if they're going to be doing any sort of business in town should get a business license. And that's actually a very broad definition. So people, if they think they are doing more than, say, a garage sale, basically they should look up the ordinance and decide to sign up if they're doing business in town.
Let's look at the directions that Airbnb has to its hosts, and it specifically says, reach out to the city, pay business license, talk to the building inspector, make sure your space is safe. And so they are specifically connected to the city to make sure that they're in compliance.
Yes, I do. Yeah. On our end, in order to administer acceptance of the fee, I'm sure it's similar to just the tax we already take in. It'll go through the same process, and there's, I'm assuming, not a huge administrative barrier between where we are and actually collecting it, right?
And no, the simple answer and straight answer is no, there's not a big barrier. I've had several conversations with our finance director. We actually have 3 options. We'll probably elect the local collection. Second option would be to have Clackamas County collect on our behalf, and the third would be to have the state of Oregon under contract collect. And as I said, Julie and I have had several conversations on this and feel that because of the very limited number of collectible places, that it would make sense to use our existing staff structure to handle that, at least for the time being.
Collections are quarterly. It's not monthly, so that makes it even easier.
I really appreciate this presentation. This was super helpful. We had the work session, which was a good briefing, and then I really liked the slide, especially that you did, Grant, about outlining the 86 out of 241. That actually really helped me. And then you said, what, 90% of those cities are 6%? Because during the work session, I was like, I was having a hard time getting there, because I personally do not like to pay any extra hotel fees, But okay, I'm sold on it. Yeah.
So just want to recap a couple of things. So there's currently state tax at 1.5%?
1.8%.
1.8%. There's county at 6%.
Yes.
So if we're looking at another 6, we're looking at roughly almost 14% tax on someone staying here in Canby.
And in context, I believe Wilsonville has 5% and Oregon City has 6%. So our direct competitors are right in the same ballpark.
Okay.
And the math on that for Motel 6 would be like $10.76 a night. So it's not particularly prohibitive compared to some places that have like $300 a night room.
I understand if you go to California, it tends to be a little different.
Yeah.
I'm just,
Yeah.
$10 is $10.
It is.
So there is no, this applies across the board to the fairgrounds as well. Is there other key, except the 10 spots? So the 70% in the revenue, can you give us some thoughts on kind of what might be planning for, thinking about, kind of future ideas on how that 70% would be spent?
Would be delighted to invite Jamie Stickle to share her thoughts on that.
That'd be great.
I'll take any chance possible to get in front of a microphone. Well, one of the things I think that's important to think about when we're talking about that 70% is that, I love thinking about, obviously, the city-led events that we have with Independence Day and the street dance, but it really is to focus on tourism as a whole. And I think the greatest example of looking at tourism and looking what our assets are is our Visit Canby website. And so, just even it's a solid example of something that costs money to keep up, and if we keep it stagnant, then why would you come to Canby if we have last year's or 2 years ago events listed? But then to also do some social media and some bigger advertising of Canby as a whole. I think of not just the street dance, but Canby's Big Weekend, which features lots of events. I mean, I think that depending on what you count, it could be up to 10 events that happen that weekend that really drive people, which drives business, which helps our downtowns, our local businesses. And so taking a look at that, and maybe taking a look at what a tourism plan looks like. What I think and what you think on tourism could be two different things. So having someone come in who knows how to formulate a tourism plan and taking a look at the landscape of what Canby has, we have a lot to offer. And so getting all of those different people to come to the table and have their voice, I think about our retail market analysis is a good example of bringing people together, listening to what they have to say on a very specific issue, that something like that could be a really tangible product moving forward. So we're not just saying, oh, well, this is how Wilsonville does it. Let's tailor it to Canby.
It also puts us in a really good position to do something that we haven't been able to up to this time, and that's to provide grants to some of the community activities that are so important. Cuthbert's Cruise In comes immediately to mind as a great event that brings in many people, but we're not able to financially support it. We provide a lot of rah-rah support, but are not able to, and so we'd be in a position to set aside a portion of the money for grant applications, do it on a competitive selection process, and really support some of the activities that are privately sponsored but benefit the entire community. I just think it's a great opportunity to just expand the city's presence as a supporter of our overall tourism and economic development activities.
There was one piece of research that I wanted to share with you. Since our Motel 6 is probably the main contributor to the program initially anyway, I did some research to figure out how many Motel 6s there are in Oregon that are affected by a transient room tax and what rate they pay. So there's 22 of them, and of those, only 3 pay 6% or less.
The rest pay?
The rest pay much more. In fact, I would say 8 of them pay over, where is it now? Over 9%, almost 10%. There's about 6.
They're just a municipality.
6 that pay 9%. So I mean, my point is that many communities that affect a hotel like ours are collecting much higher tax rates than we're considering here.
Just to expand on that, you know, when we talk about our competitors as far as Wilsonville and Oregon City, if they have a different level of hotel, there's all of these levels as we start to dig into the hotel research, you know, comparing what the Motel 6s are across the map has been really helpful to kind of see what our current motel competitors would be, you know, apples to apples. So it is not too grand of an idea to promote Canby and drive business to our businesses.
Even if this new 80-room hotel doesn't materialize in the near future, if it's like 10 years out, we're still generating some revenue from the Motel 6, and the infrastructure's in place, or the taxes in place, say, going forward. Yeah. Okay.
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I just want to really be clear on the disbursement of the 70/30. So what I'm hearing is advertising, promotion, that kind of thing comes out of the 70, but public works, public safety comes out of the 30%. And where would the grants come in?
The grants would come out of the 70%
Okay.
typically. The 30% I would be proposing that we manage principally in all of the support activities. It's actually very expensive from a staff perspective to put on the Canby Independence Day. Very expensive from a staff perspective to do the street dance as part of Canby's Big Weekend. There are other activities and events that are very similar. As an example, we have the chief in the back of the room, and they do the fireworks display, and we're not able to be much of a contributor to that, but with these funding, it gives us an opportunity to actually make a contribution and to support an event that is hugely attended in our community, something that we can't do now financially and economically.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for staff at all?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to open up the public hearing for testimony. No one's really filled out any yellow cards in terms of proponents, so those that are for the tax. Not seeing any opponents to this right now. Not seeing any. Then I will close the public hearing. Any other questions or discussion here by council?
I just want to say it's kind of fun to think of how far we've come in the last 10 years, that, you know, Canby's not a sleepy town anymore, and there really is a need for people to have a place to come, and this hotel research project that we've done and trying to figure out how we can accommodate the people that we've now begun to attract. And so I actually think it's just a really good sign that we're at a point now where this is becoming an important piece of how we move forward as a community and continue to support our businesses, the efforts we're making, and really kind of what makes Canby, the Independence Day celebration, the street dance, like all the things we talk about that we love. This is a way that we can actually support it, and there's both a need for it, and I think that there's now an avenue for us because we're just not a sleepy little town anymore. So I think it's really exciting. Yeah.
Any discussion or question on the percent recommendation?
I do remember in the work session, there wasn't a big appetite for it to go that large of 6%. I remember an appetite, at least half of us wanted somewhere more around the 4%. So just wondering where everybody's thinking today, since it seems to me that it sounds like people are changing their minds from that work session to today. I have not, by the way, but.
I have, actually. I was more of the 4%. But I'm convinced, actually, looking at the data across the state, that so many, and looking at our neighbors, too, the 5 and the 6, I feel okay about it. I'm not a big fan of paying, I have to say, or having our outsiders come in. I don't like to kind of punish people for being tourists and Canby, but I think I'm not looking at it from that point of view anymore. I'm looking at it as an opportunity. So I see your point, though, Tracy. Yeah, but I'm okay with 6. Yeah.
I'm comfortable with the 6%. I think that if someone wants to come to Canby for the fair or a sporting event or whatever, they're not going to stay in Wilsonville because there's a 1% tax difference and they're going to save 50 cents because they're going to spend more than that in gas. But I also look at it like this. The reason they're coming to Canby is because our community is putting on events that support their interest in coming here. And in a way, it's their proportional input into why they're here, right? It's like they're contributing then towards the expense of having them here that we're all putting in. So I see it as kind of a buy-in on their end for why they're here. I don't mind when I go to McMinnville, I don't mind paying the transient room tax, because part of the reason I'm in McMinnville is because they got me to go there because there's, wineries and McMinimans and all these other things. And so this is our visitors' buy-in to what we have to offer. I'm completely comfortable with it. I think it's consistent with what our neighbors have. And I don't think that if Wilsonville was 5% and we were 6%, that someone would stay in Wilsonville instead of here if this is where they wanted to be. I don't make my consumer decisions that way, and I would expect a few other people do.
If I could just add the math, I know Councilor Dale loves the math, or Council President Dale loves the math. If we're talking about $76 for the Hotel 6 or Motel 6 out here, 6% is $4.56, 3% is $2.28. So you're talking about the difference of when you stay at night of $2.28 between for 3% and 6%. It's just cumulative, over everybody staying there all year long, that you get a higher amount of money. So if that helps people mathematically get it situated, what it means.
Any other discussion or question? Okay, that ordinance is going to come up here shortly. Oh,
I'm sorry, Your Honor. Because the actual ordinance in front of you doesn't have the rate in it, we would prefer that you on the record do a motion on which rate you want to go forward with.
Okay, then I have a follow-up question before we go to that.
Okay.
Is there a cap to the rate? Is 6%, is that just an arbitrary percent?
Do you want it higher?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm asking what prevents it from going higher.
Us, right?
Okay.
Make it 8.
Yeah, like Portland's at 8. No.
Yeah. The beach is
why I'm
12, right? All those beach cities
Yeah,
are
I think they're
high.
12.
Yeah.
Ashland was crazy.
Just wanted to put that out there. Okay, so I need a motion on the recommended rate. Someone wants to make that motion?
Do we do it now?
No, not that ordinance. We need I move that we set the transient room tax
Rate
at whatever percent.
Okay.
I move that we set the transient room tax at 6%.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Spoon, seconded by Councilor Height to approve a transient room tax of 6%. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Hey.
Motion carries 4-1. Okay. Diane, take care of that, Kim and Joe?
Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you very much. All right, we will move into our selection of resolutions and ordinances. Kim?
The first item we have is Ordinance 1475. This is authorizing the purchase of 3 vehicles for Canby Area Transit from Creative Bus Sales of Canby, Oregon.
Rick and Julie?
That is Julie, our expert. And I'll be happy to fill in wherever I can.
Hi, Julie.
Unlike Jamie, I don't like to be at this meeting. But you could probably figure that out. Mayor and councilors, thank you for this opportunity. We have 3 buses in the fleet that have exceeded their age or mileage threshold and their useful life, and they were eligible for replacement with federal grant funds. And we were awarded 2 federal 5310 grants and 1 SDF grant from the state to purchase 1 20-passenger and 2 16-passenger buses. The proposed new buses would replace buses 17, 18, and 19 in the current fleet.
Creative Bus Sales, which happens to be a local company, was selected as the vendor for all 3 buses. We expect the new buses to be delivered in December. Once they arrive, the fleet department will send at least 1 bus to auction and then evaluate the condition of the rest of the fleet and identify which buses would be the best to retain for backups. This purchase increases the number of our box that we have in the fleet from 5 to 8 and standardizes the Dial-A-Ride fleet. It also decreases the average age of the fleet and improves its overall reliability. We published a request for quote on March 21st and received 1 quote for the 20-passenger and 2 quotes for the 16 passengers. The quotes were evaluated using best value criterion and were approved. The selections were approved by ODOT. We will purchase the buses through the Oregon Cooperative Purchasing Program, which is known as ORPN, or I can't remember what ORPN stands for, sorry. The funding to make this purchase is in the proposed budget for next year. The 5310 grants require a 10.27% cash match. The total cost for all 3 buses is estimated at $418,031, which is $376,887 in grant funds and $441,144 in cash from the transit reserves. So we're eager to have these buses, and thanks for your consideration.
Any questions for Julie? Okay, great. No questions. I'll take a motion, please.
I'll move that we approve Ordinance 1475, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to purchase 3 vehicles for Canby Area Transit from Creative Bus Sales of Canby, Oregon, to come up for second reading on May 16th.
Thank you.
Second.
The motion's been made by Councilor Height and seconded by Councilor Spoon to approve Ordinance 1475, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to purchase 3 vehicles for Canby Area Transit from Creative Bus Sales of Canby, Oregon, and to come up for second reading on May 16th, 2018. Any further discussion or question?
Nope.
Nope. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0.
The next item we have is Ordinance 1476. This is establishing criminal history record check policies concerning applicants for employment, appointed volunteers, contractors, and those employed by contractors with this city, and repealing Ordinance 1224.
Thank you.
Yes, this ordinance actually, it does repeal and replace Ordinance 1224, so you have a program like this already in place. There have been a number of changes that have occurred over the last several years. We're bringing this ordinance up into compliance with those changes, including the requirement that we, and the requirement exists, but we haven't been as good as I think we need to be, that we do background checks on volunteers during certain circumstances. Very cognizant and aware that we don't want to put people in positions that have backgrounds that could be a danger to those persons that they are providing services to. So we're working diligently to address that issue. This also establishes the Canby Police Department as the venue through which the background checks occur. And the chief has graciously agreed to and supports efforts to continue what we have had in the past, which is an ongoing relationship that allows us to access criminal records we might not otherwise have access to.
Questions for Mr. Robinson at all?
Is it easy-ish for volunteers to go through this process?
Yeah,
You know?
it's not a painful process. It's not a painful process. It's a pretty straightforward process. It doesn't take long, but it's important. It's important that we make sure that the people that are volunteering in our organization, if using an extreme example, if we pair them with a youth-related function, working in the library, working on a community-based event, and we find that they're sex offenders or child molesters, and we have failed to do our due diligence to do that background, to make that determination, and we put the children in a position of risk, then it's really our fault because we failed to do our own due diligence. So yeah, well, I think it's important. There are circumstances when we might not, where there is low or no real risk, depending on what the activities are, duration of the volunteer event, and other factors. But yeah, I think this is a good policy, and the idea is to safeguard the community as appropriate to do so. The question was asked relating to this item by one of our counselors, that does this mean that we are going to screen out all persons who have committed an offense in the past? And the answer to that question is no. We consider the type of offense that the individual has been found adjudicated guilty of, when that offense may have occurred, determine if it's relevant to the position for which the individual is applying, and then make a determination whether or not it's appropriate to bring that person into the city's workforce, either as a volunteer or as a paid employee.
So for example, like 4th of July, someone that's volunteering to run the parade booth, like that wouldn't necessitate a background check, for example.
You know, we probably wouldn't do it. There's a question of whether we should and whether we do.
Right.
We probably should, but we probably don't. And it's a question of coordination. And from this conversation with the counselor earlier this week, I need to take a closer look at how we, in fact, make that determination, because there are roles and responsibilities in even 4th of July, or can be Independence Day, that we probably should be doing background checks, even if it's a one-day event, just because of the nature of the volunteer position and the implications of putting a position, not knowing a person's background, putting a person not knowing that individual background into a position where they could come into contact, again using the extreme example, with children if they're a convicted sex offender. Those are the types of things that we really have to measure and monitor and make a determination. I don't know what the right answer is, except that we'll do the best we can to protect the community.
And I could give the other extreme, just so you guys see the universe of possibilities, is that we actually use our works and our parks folks use community service through the court system to have people who are either working off time, having been convicted, or trying to defer their conviction so that they can perhaps earn the idea of even being convicted. So we actually use people in our parks and in our works who we know have just recently gotten into trouble and who are working it off. So it isn't that we're sidestepping people's abilities to be volunteers. It's just how they volunteer and our responsibility. There is something in tort law called negligent hiring, and we can actually be sued if we don't do our due diligence in looking at what type of hiring we're doing, and then actually doing a reasonable check to make sure that that person won't abuse that position. So that's the balance we're trying to strike.
Questions? Okay. Motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve Ordinance 1476, an ordinance establishing criminal history record check policies concerning applicants for employment, appointed volunteers, contractors, and those employed by contractors with the city, and repealing Ordinance 1224 to come up for second reading May 16th, 2018.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion has been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Height to approve ordinance number 1476, an ordinance establishing criminal history record check policies concerning applicants for employment, appointed volunteers, contractors, and those employed by contractors with the city, and repealing ordinance 1224, and coming up for second reading on May, what day did you say?
16th.
May 16th, 2018. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 5-0.
The next item is ordinance 1477. This is adding Chapter 3.50 to the Canby Municipal Code, thereby establishing a transient room tax.
Great, we just had our public hearing on that piece, and it looks like the transit room tax will be set at, what did we say, 6%?
6%.
Okay. Motion, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move for ordinance 1477, an ordinance adding Chapter 3.50 to the Canby Municipal Code, thereby establishing a transient room tax.
Second.
Motion has been made by Council President Dale and seconded by Councilor Spoon to approve ordinance number 1477, an ordinance adding Chapter 3.50 to the Canby Municipal Code, thereby establishing a transient room tax. Any further discussion, comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Carries 5-0.
The next item is ordinance 1478. This is authorizing a contract with Eagle Elsner, Inc. in the amount of $758,447 with authorization to expand the work of scope to an amount not to exceed $850,000 for construction of Schedule A of the 2018 street resurfacing and slurry seal and declaring an emergency.
Great.
I would comment first that we are requesting that you declare an emergency so that we can start the work during this fiscal year and be as timely as we can in delivering this work to the residents of this community. We did get 3 bids for this 2018 street resurfacing and slurry seal project. The low responsible bidder is Eagle Elsner Incorporated at $758,447. Staff recommendation is to award to Eagle Elsner. And I will say that I'm happy to do this, and because we have this wonderful Public Works Director sitting in the audience, that next year I'm going to let her present this to you. and I will abdicate that responsibility and deliver it to Ms. Klein. So our recommendation is as is identified in the staff report.
Before we move into a motion, can I make a request of staff?
Yeah.
For this particular item? And I guess it's item G. For the second readings of those, can we get a map up for, since we've got this wonderful high definition multimedia capabilities, and be able to put that on the screen so people know
What streets are
being done?
It would be our pleasure to do that, and
That's a great
I
idea.
owe you an apology because this is something that the mayor asked me about 3 weeks ago, and I didn't write it down, and I forgot. I apologize. I will have that for you at second reading.
Okay. I'll let you off the hook because I don't remember asking, so.
You shouldn't have said anything.
You should have said.
No.
We have the honest.
Rick has a tendency to fall on his sword sometimes when he doesn't. When it's appropriate, and this time, you're right, Rick, gosh darn it. Where is my color-coded map of the streets and what's getting done?
You did ask for it, and I just failed to deliver.
Mr. Mayor.
Can I ask a question real quick, Tracy? Schedule A versus Schedule B, what is the difference between those? Can you explain?
If we had a map, we'd know.
Tough crowd.
Oh, really
Twisted
hurts.
Sorry, Rick.
Schedule B, you'll see coming up on item
G.
8G. That is the slurry seal contract portion.
Is there a difference, though, between, like, A just happened to be, we've broken this into two projects?
Into two projects.
Okay, yeah.
So we have
Into two
resurfacing
components.
and we have slurry seal.
Gotcha.
But this one is resurfacing and slurry seal.
They both
ordinance
say it.
14. I don't understand the difference, honestly. In the
Yeah,
language.
we probably could have done a little bit. The entire project was called resurfacing and slurry seal, so that was the technical title of the project. We should have provided a clarification to you that said this portion of the seal and resurface and slurry seal is the resurface, and this portion of the surface and reseal is the slurry.
Got it.
So one's doing the resurfacing, the other one's
Yeah.
slurry sealing.
Yeah.
So it would have been the same map either way.
It would have been.
But it would have been color-coded.
It actually is a different color. The slurry seal is a different color than
Got it.
than the overlay. And both are using our street maintenance fee funds to perform the work. So that that contribution made by all of our residents is going to serve the needs of the community.
Right. Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance 1478, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to execute a contract with Eagle Elsner Incorporated in the amount of $758,447 with authorization to expand the work scope to an amount not to exceed $850,000 for construction of Schedule A of the 2018 street resurfacing and slurry seal and declaring an emergency. And thank you, Rick, for explaining why before I even had to ask.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Parker to approve ordinance number 1478, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to execute a contract with Eagle Elsner Incorporated in the amount of $758,447 with authorization to expand the work scope to an amount not to exceed $850,000 for construction of Schedule A of the 2008 street resurfacing and slurry seal and declaring an emergency. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That passes 5-0.
The next item is ordinance 1479. This is amending Canby Municipal Code, Chapter 8.20, pertaining to alarms.
Chief. Yay. Chief. Here come the chief.
Before I get started, I want to introduce Kelly Whitaker. She's our newest employee with the police department, and she's our police administrative assistant.
Welcome,
Kelly.
Well, we're asking you to take recommend a proposal here for an ordinance here and also a contract. In the Canby Police Department of the City of Canby used a software program that was done by Clackamas County that helped us manage our alarm program. And that alarm software that the county's using, that we use to manage our own alarms, is going away as of July 1. So as a result of trying to solve that problem, our department staff has been looking and interviewing different vendors out there for an alarm software to see what would work for us to maintain our alarm program. And we have decided that of those interviews that the PMAM Corporation is the one that seems to fit best for our city. And we're recommending that that company operate our alarm program, and we move forward with that. It would require an ordinance change and include that, as well as, again, a contract. And we believe that we'd have greater compliance in our city as it relates to the alarms that we have out here residentially with a growing population in our city, being able to keep up with it. It would be more than our department is going to be able to manage currently, and we think it's a better way to work. And as a result, really, of having to come and face the reality, we don't have a program with the county anymore. It gave us an opportunity to take a look at best practices and a way to really, really serve our community in a better way with a better program that has more information and better police response. Also to answer a question from an earlier workshop that we had, this will not delay any response time by the police. This company here really monitors, and it allows the alarm companies to do what they do best, work with the customer and be able to monitor their alarm and then report it to 911 if needed. And then this company manages those calls after the fact, so we don't have duplication of services, we don't delay time, and we have an opportunity to get the customer to have the relationship who they choose to work with from an alarm company that best fits them. So I think from that perspective, that's a good sign.
Chief mentioned we had a work session earlier tonight on this whole change in the ordinance, as well as the company that we're going to go with here in the next ordinance after that. Are there any follow-up questions or any clarifications that we may have missed? So basically, we're being forced to replace the current system that we're on, and we're going to an outside agency that will handle the alarm piece for us.
In short, that's correct. We've been piggybacking on the county on a software system that will no longer exist. So we were forced as a city to make a decision about how we're going to move forward. And so that's correct. So we're moving with our recommendations with this company.
And it won't cost the city anything, right?
This does not. This company invests in the setup of the program, and they then manage it, and they receive their costs as a result of their managing through the monitoring of the alarm and through the fees associated with that from false alarms.
And Joe, if a Canby citizen's unhappy with how PM/AM is charging them or finding them, what's their recourse?
Yeah, so this outside company, if they determine that there's been some sort of, violation, late, bill pay or, a false alarm fee that they don't like, there is an appeal process. It is one of two ways, either, I believe, online or on phone. And when they do that, we have a local administrator that we're going to assign to review whatever it is that person on their appeal is complaining about. And if we find that it's a valid appeal, locally we can just override the company and just say, no, they don't owe that. So it's actually a local control for any customer that's local can complain to basically a person in the police department who can look at their situation, and they have the final say in whether or not. So you won't see an outside company being able to unfairly ding the customer at all.
It's decided in Canby instead of Dallas.
Correct.
Very good.
One of the things that interests us too is that we looked at that complaints that might be associated with this vendor. And one of the things we liked about it is that I think the process in which they look at violations and how they review them, and in that complaint process and or that appeal they have very few negative outcomes. They have a very high customer service orientation and response, and we think that's really positive. One of the things I don't want to be doing is listening to people who are upset about a process that's not fair, and they have a very high success rate as far as resolving those appeals and having people understand what the issues are so that they can, again, understand it and correct it. One of the things that's really great about this particular program is the educational aspect. This particular program or vendor really emphasizes education and a reduction in false alarms. And in my experience is that in our alarms that we have, our false alarms that we have, they are the majority of what we're responding to as false alarms. And so this is an opportunity to educate people to change that. And this program or this vendor has that educational component built into its system. So we don't currently have that. So this is a very good thing for our community as well.
Mayor, are you ready for a motion?
I am, sir.
All right. And it looks like we have two separate motions. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. I move to approve ordinance number 1479, an ordinance amending Chapter 8.20 of the Canby Municipal Code pertaining to alarms to come up for second reading on May 16th, 2018.
Motion's been made by Councilor Parker and seconded by Councilor Hensley to approve ordinance 1479, amending Canby Municipal Code Chapter 8.20 pertaining to alarms. Any further discussion?
I just want to say I'm glad the county kind of inadvertently forced us to make a change, because this sounds like a good thing.
Good point,
you know?
Tracy. Yeah.
Yeah,
it is.
so rah-rah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 1480, an ordinance authorizing the City of Canby to enter into a contract with PM/AM Corporation of Texas to provide alarm program administration and collection services for the city to come up with for a second reading on May 16th, 2018.
Second again.
Motion has been made by Councilor Parker and seconded by Councilor Hensley to approve ordinance number 1480, an ordinance authorizing the City of Canby to enter into a contract with PM/AM Corporation of Texas to provide alarm program administration and collection services for the city. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 5-0. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is Ordinance 1481. This is authorizing a contract with Intermountain Slurry Seal in the amount of $141,185 with authorization to expand the work scope to an amount not to exceed $200,000 for construction of Schedule B of the 2018 street resurfacing and slurry seal.
Now watch how I do this one. This is the slurry seal portion of the 2018 street resurfacing and slurry seal project. For this bid, we did receive 3 qualified bids. The low responsible bidder is Intermountain Slurry Seal Incorporated at $141,185. Staff recommendation is to accept this low bid.
Sir?
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question.
Questions, yes.
Just curious why this one does not have the declaration, emergency declaration?
It does actually.
It's
on the
not
next-
on the packet, that's why I was
Oh,
wondering.
it doesn't?
So add that on.
No.
It should. Okay. Okay.
So you don't need the
pulled it off of
E-clause?
this.
Okay.
So,
I was just curious there.
you know, my sword is getting
Part A
really,
and
really
B are the
dull
same,
now.
so
Eyes
I'm
like
just
a
curious.
hawk.
All right.
You know what, she does.
All right, well, that makes sense. Then, Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance number 1481, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to execute a contract with Intermountain Slurry Seal Incorporated in the amount of $141,185 with authorization to expand the work scope to an amount not to exceed $200,000 for construction of Schedule B of this 2018 street resurfacing and slurry seal.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Height to approve ordinance 1481, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to execute a contract with Intermountain Slurry Seal Incorporated in the amount of $141,185 with authorization to expand the work scope to an amount not to exceed $200,000 for construction of Schedule B of the 2018 street resurfacing and slurry seal. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0.
And the last ordinance is Ordinance 1482. This is authorizing a contract with Herd Farms for wastewater sludge removal.
Annual
sludge removal.
We've seen this one before. We have.
Always a pleasure to bring sludge to your attention. As you are well aware, this is an annual agreement that we have been doing with Herd Farms for wastewater sludge removal. Herd Farms does use this on the grant land that they farm, we did check with the state to determine which other providers of this type of service might be available. They listed Herd Farms, a group called Clearwater Technologies out of Merlin, Oregon, and Fire Mountain Farms out of Washington, that would have to meet both Washington and Oregon requirements. After looking at these options, staff recommendation as the best option available to us continues to be Herd Farms. I would also add that Herd Farms did not raise their rate for the 2018-19 contract.
Oh, excellent.
Rick, how has their level of service been?
It's been really good. They do a really good job for us, and we had a little bit of a challenge at the beginning of the contract for 2017-18, but it related to licensing and working through some DEQ regulations that Herd Farms had to do for application on farmed agricultural lands, but they were able to address that, and the program and the contract has worked very efficiently and effectively for the city as an organization, and has kept costs down for our residents.
Can I make a motion? Are you ready, Mr. Mayor? Okay. Yeah. I move that we adopt Ordinance 1482, authorizing a contract with Herd Farms for wastewater sludge removal.
Great. Second, please. Motion's been made by Councilor Height and seconded by Councilor Spoon to approve Ordinance 1482, an ordinance authorizing the City of Canby to enter into a contract with Herd Farms for wastewater sewage sludge removal. Any further conversation? Okay. Are we sure?
Pretty sure.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 5-0. There's nothing, I don't think, new business-wise, city administrator business, and staff reports.
No.
Nothing at this time. Second opportunity for citizen input. Anybody wants to provide us input? Seeing nobody rushing the microphone, we'll move into action review.
I actually had something I wanted to say way up on communications, but you didn't look at me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say that May 30th is the first date that candidates can file paperwork for one of the 3 city councilor positions, or that of mayor. That'll be on the November 6th general election ballot. So if anyone wants to file paperwork, give me a call and I'll go over the election process.
June 1st?
May 30th is the first date.
Okay.
Action review, you've approved the consent agenda. You've approved a transient room tax at the rate of 6%. You've approved ordinances 1475, 1476, 1477, 1478, 1479, 1480, 1481, and 1482 to come up for second reading on May 16th.
Great. Thank you, Kim. Joe, you've actually had a lot of opportunity to talk tonight. This has been good.
Thanks.
And is there an exec session?
There is not.
Okay.
That's good. One little word.
Joe earned his paycheck this week. Before I adjourn, let me remind you that we do have an urban renewal agency meeting following immediately afterwards. So I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor of adjourning this particular meeting?
Aye.
All those in favor? We've done that. Anyone opposed? Thanks.
No one's opposed.
No. All right.
Mr.
We
Byrd.
are adjourned and moving into the urban renewal agency meeting.
I'll call to order the Canby Urban Renewal Agency special meeting of May 2nd, 2018. Is it the pleasure of the agency to just rely on the opening ceremonies from council? Okay with you? Thank you. First up, we have an opportunity for citizen input. Anybody would like to address the agency? And seeing none, Kim, do we have any community announcements for the agency? All righty. The only announcement I have is that the dahlia will not be orange and yellow. Next up, consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda, which include the minutes of the April 18th, 2018 Urban Renewal District Agency special meeting.
And I'll second.
It's been moved by Vice Chair Hodson, seconded by Commissioner Hensley, to approve the consent agenda, which is for the minutes of the April 18th, 2018 Urban Renewal District Agency special meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? And that carries 6-0. Next up, we have new business, facade improvement application for John Berg of Berg Investment LLC. And it looks like Jamie's coming forward. And the Bergs.
Good evening, Jamie Stickle, Main Street Manager, and I have John and Glenn Berg with me representing the property on Northwest First Avenue and also on North Holly. Before you have a facade application for improvement of up to $2,500 or 20. That Red Bull got me. Up to $25,000 for John Berg of Berg Investments, so it would be John and Glenn. They recently purchased the building prominently located at 200 Northwest First Avenue, 210 Northwest First Avenue, and 149 North Holly Street. Just to give you some clarification, that's Bikes and More, Canby Trophy, and the former Pregnancy Care Center. They intend to upgrade the building facade along both Holly and Northwest First to make sure that it complements the developments that are going on downtown and really to spruce up that prominent corner. Their proposed facade improvement project includes replacing and repainting building siding, repairing any damaged plywood under that siding, repair or enlarge windows, repair or replace the signage, the hardware and mounting material is the part that the city would cover, any structural upgrades to that facade as needed, and then installation of awnings and canopies. And what you have before you is also a beautiful rendering of what they are proposing. So I'm actually going to turn it over to the Bergs. I think nobody's more excited to have this in front of you than they are. So.
I am. I know I was excited. No, we purchased the building about a little less than a year ago. We were hoping to have this taken care of way before this, but the architect had better things to do, more important things. But we finally got it done. We got the bids out, and we've already turned it in for permits. We're hoping that it's approved by you folks today, so that we can get on the construction as soon as the contractor is picked and they have the time to get it. As you know, I think you know that contractors are pretty busy nowadays. So I'm hoping that if things work out, it'll be done before the summer's out. We are not going to try to rent the pregnancy center out until we get this done. So, our intention is to keep the bike shop as long as they will and the trophy shop. This project is probably 3 times more than I thought it was going to cost, but then again, that shouldn't be a surprise. So we're looking forward to, I think that do they see okay, I think you'll like what we're proposing, and we're looking forward to getting it done.
Oh, they look great.
Yeah, it's a beautiful project. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you for doing this. This is right across the street from the Dahlia project, and it's really going to help make that part of town sparkle. So thank you for your commitment to the downtown.
I think it'll be a nice improvement, and what you guys are doing in the city is really nice too.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that the design is beautiful. I particularly like the addition of the canopies and the lighting on the signage, which I think is a little bit lacking down there now. I think will be a huge benefit to the business owners, but also it's just going to be such a nice addition with all the development going on. I couldn't quite tell from the picture, so I just have a question for you. It's one of my favorite things about that part of town is it's the color that it adds to the downtown, and I couldn't tell from the design. Is it completely beige, or is there some color in the inlets?
It's two-tone. There's different, and the color is not set in stone. I've talked to Jamie, and we're going to see what happens to the Dahlia project. Sure. What we want to do is blend everything that looks good. So we're not set on the color. Now the other thing that those that they put in here is the sconces on the outside lighting. We're going to have lighting under the doors, so that but those on the outside, we're not sure if those are going in. So there's a few minor things that might change, but overall what you see is what we're going to get. Okay.
I think it's exciting to me if it's two-tone, so it's not just a kind of a beige corner in town. And
There'll be
yeah.
some accent trims around it, so it'll be nice. We were thinking about doing brick out front for the columns, but that got pretty expensive, and I think there was an issue with the city having the brick coming out too far on the sidewalks, and I didn't want to go through that hassle.
No, it's beautiful. I appreciate your investment in the building in our town.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Microphone back. And John has been very patient with me, saying things like, "We're really excited, and let's talk about all the fun, fluffy details." And so he's been very patient as we've moved forward. This application went to our design committee, and obviously the responses were very positive. The rendering represents a huge improvement to the look of the building. The use of exterior lighting, new windows, and awnings provides a very appealing look. Another member said the colors that are on the printout and design will tie in the two corners. So they were actually talking about the Mattress World building and this building. But as we've talked, there's some flexibility in color, and obviously we have the renderings for the Dahlia, and it's very close in proximity. So I can make sure that John and Glenn have that. The staff recommends that the agency approve the allocation of matching grant funds for this project. And before you have a recommended motion, provided you don't have any more questions.
Yeah, any more questions for John or Glenn or Jamie?
Glad it's happening.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Ready for a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the facade improvement application for matching funds for the John Berg of John Berg Berg Investment LLC. Pardon me. Thank you. Got tongue-tied toward the end of the night.
It's been moved by Commissioner Hensley, seconded by Vice Chair Hodson, to approve the matching grant of up to $25,000 for Berg Investment LLC under the guidelines of the Downtown Canby Facade Improvement Program. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it carries 6-0. Congratulations, Bergs, and thank you. Very much appreciate it. Thank you. Mr. Administrator, is there any other business to come before the agency? There is not. All righty, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Commissioner Hensley, seconded by Commissioner Height that we adjourn. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Good night, Canby.